Antarctica. There's a 30-meter wide opening. A lot of the world leaders went down there, and even Buzz Aldrin was invited. He made a very cryptic tweet when he came out of there. A few hours later or so, he deleted it. He interacted with something there, or saw something there, that made him think it was evil. What it was?
The 4-time best-selling author,
researcher and founder of Forbidden Knowledge,
Billy Carson.
The pyramids, have you seen the stuff that's come out recently?
Oh, yeah. They found these cylindrical structures deep beneath the pyramid, like way down there. They look like technology, clearly. Now, I've been to the Great Pyramid, into the subterranean chamber beneath the bedrock. And you go down there and it's like...
If you know that information, it would be really hard to keep that to yourself.
I can't expose all of it because they'll kill me, so...
Some of the things which are happening on Mars and information which is being withheld, who is aware of this information and why are they withholding it?
Well...
What's up, guys? Welcome back to First Things First. We have the main man, Billy Carson, in the building.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I've been looking forward to this one for a long time.
I'm glad we were able to make it happen, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. We're in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
How long have you been here for?
Wow, a long time. Probably since 1993. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so like this is the surface of all the things that I want to touch upon today, and this is me barely scratching it. Like there's the more that I want to get into all of these different topics, I just realize how much I don't know and how much more there is to know. So, well, first of all, I want to know like how you got into it and where this curiosity of yours stemmed from.
Yeah. To be honest, it started when I was a young child. In my backyard, I actually used to look at the airplanes go over my backyard because we lived next to this place called the Opa-locka Airport in Miami. And it was a small private airport. Matter of fact, it was in a movie. It was in Bad Boys movie with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. They actually did a big scene at that airport. But I would watch the small planes go over, and a small plane, those little prop jets, they would take a long time to clear the horizon. And one day when I was out there looking, I saw this object clear the horizon in seconds. And it didn't have wings, it didn't have a cockpit, didn't have a tail fin. And even as a young kid, 7 years old, I realized what I saw was amazing. But then it came back and it stopped. I mean, on the drop of a dime, stopped. And it just hovered silently, lower though, glowing metal, a little bit like an elongated egg. And then poof, it was gone again. And I ran in the house. Oh my God, Mom, I can't believe what I just saw. Blah, blah. I was trying to tell her what it was. And she didn't get shocked. She didn't get flustered, or she didn't try to shut me up. She just said, son, in the ancient past, there were many advanced beings that used to come to this planet. And one day you need to travel to Machu Picchu because they used to live on top of some mountains. That's what she told me in the 1970s.
Okay.
And I was blown away. And I dedicated my first book to her with a picture of me at Machu Picchu because, it was a long life goal to do that. But that got me into looking into aerospace technology. So the next day I went to my school, Rainbow Park Elementary, in Opa-locka, it's still there. And I asked the teacher if I can go to the library. She said, for what? I said, I need to go to the encyclopedia so I can look up airplanes. And that's when I learned about aerospace. And I got the encyclopedia on aerospace, and I started looking at swept wing, delta wing, ballistic, intercontinental ballistic. I saw even hovercraft, believe it or not, were out back then in the 70s. And I researched the SR-71 and everything else. And I was just like, I can't find what I saw in my backyard. But that led me into researching aerospace technology. A week and a half later, knocking at the door, the encyclopedia salesman comes to the house. This is our old Google, right? We didn't have machines back then, computers. And my mother accepted a set of these encyclopedias, even though she couldn't afford them. And the guy he came back for one payment. And after that, he never came back again. I don't know if he got fired or whatever happened, but I had the whole world in my house. And I would study technology, biology, chemistry, you name it. And that took me down the mainstream, course at first. Later on, fast forward, it developed a passion within me for ancient civilizations. And I started noticing a connection between ancient civilizations and a lot of the technology I had been studying for so many years. And I started wanting to travel. So I went to Mexico, Chichen Itza, Teotihuacan, and I was blown away. And that really just excited this thing within me to really want to learn more about how these cultures were able to develop this technology. And build these things that we can't replicate today. And a few other things happened to me along the way that just took me deeper down the rabbit hole, and seeing that there's no way, once I learned more about engineering, that we can do a lot of these things today without spending maybe even trillions of dollars to make it happen. And put a super team together to try to even accomplish it. And I knew I had to spend the rest of my life traveling the world and going to these sites and researching them in person, which I've done 18 times now around the world.
Yeah, I've been to the pyramids twice. There's the list of places which I want to go to. But since we're on the topic of the pyramids, have you seen the stuff that's come out recently?
Oh, yeah.
About them doing the technology where they scan underneath the surface and they found some structures that go 600 meters down to 2 kilometers deep.
Yeah. They found these cylindrical structures. They seem to be very organized in a couple of rows, and they connect down into these bigger boxes at the base. And they're deep beneath the pyramid, like way down there. They look like technology, clearly. And if you go by the mainstream's account of how these pyramids were done and built and how the rocks were harvested and everything else, now it really looks asinine, because there's no way those techniques can develop and build this level of technology. Now, I've been to the Great Pyramid, into the subterranean chamber, which goes down 65 meters beneath the bedrock. I've been all the way down to the bottom of that.
Which one is this under?
The Great Pyramid.
Okay.
Right next to the one that has, the one they discovered, right? There's just another one right next to it, the Great Pyramid. So, and you go down there and it's like, how did they cut this? And when you look up from the shaft, which is about 5 feet by 5 feet, or 4.5 feet by 4.5 feet, and it goes straight through all the solid stone, all the blocks, straight through out into space, right? So you can it's pointing at a star. How did they cut that? Because they clearly had to cut it after the pyramid was built. So what technology can make that cut, go beneath the bedrock in a perfect angle, slope angle, without any deviation? And where's the debris go? It incinerates? Where it disappears? It's like the debris that would come from that type of cut is just gone.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So that, and along with what they just found with this new pyramid, it's letting us know that these pyramids were advanced technology. They were multifunctional stone computers, power generators, and amongst many other things.
How do you think this is going to affect things moving forwards? Because I know the Egyptians and the authorities there are kind of quite reluctant about new information coming out, which is going to go against their narrative.
Yeah.
What the Egyptians were capable of back then. Yeah,
the Board of Antiquities there is very strict. They don't want a lot of the alternative version of what could have happened to come out. And I'm not really fully sure why or who is behind the blockage or obfuscation of the new information in an alternative way of thinking. But someone is behind that somewhere, some higher level.
Is that Zahi Hawass, or someone? Is it above that?
Somebody above Zahi.
Okay.
Zahi Hawass, in my opinion, is just like a handler. He's an op. He's a guy that's getting paid to obscure the truth, to block the truth, to make up lies. He's said that in certain situations, oh, that's not a cave down there, that's not an opening to a location down there, and then a few years later, he makes the discovery, oh, it really is a cave down there. He takes the credit for it.
He's like, yeah, there's nothing under the Sphinx.
Yeah,
there's nothing there. Looks just
nothing there. Even though I've been to the Sphinx, in the Sphinx enclosure, and I've gone down and looked inside of other openings under the Sphinx. There's several that exist there, and some have tunnels that go to tunnels that lead out beyond the Sphinx enclosure. How come we didn't talk about that?
Yeah,
you see, so it's just more obfuscation. So he's like a paid op, a guy that is there just to deter anyone from learning anything outside of the mainstream, information, the mainstream dogma.
You watched the video that Mr. Beast did?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, of course, they capitalized and clout chased on his popularity to, again, put the imprint in people's minds all around the world, those hundreds of millions of followers, that there's nothing there.
Yeah.
This is just a stone rock monument, and there's nothing down here. To keep their mind away from asking more questions, digging deeper, wanting to go there and seek, asking questions, what's beneath the Sphinx? It just like distracts people's minds in a massive way because of his popularity.
What other places have you been to where you kind of had that feeling of awe that was like similar to the pyramids?
That would be Angkor Wat, Cambodia.
Okay, what's there?
Angkor Wat is a megalithic temple. It's the largest temple complex in the world. It has a moat that goes around it. Now, this moat that goes around this huge temple complex is amazing because when I was there, I studied it. I did research that nobody's done before in this moat. So this moat is it's evidence of high level technology because it captures water coming down from the mountains. It then allows the moat to maintain a certain level of water, which is massive. It's almost like a giant lake. And then it also sends water out to the fields for irrigation to their crops. So it's a multifunctional moat. Now, the thing that's so amazing about this moat is when you analyze how much soil was removed to create this moat around this massive temple complex that goes on for many hectares, it's more mass than the Great Pyramid itself. So when you start thinking about taking the resources of your entire civilization in ancient times, when the most important thing is hunting, gathering, village, right? Making sure everybody's got something to eat, everyone's safe. You now take that daily routine and break it down and say, no, we're going to take all resources to dig this hole in the ground. Mm-hmm. And we're going to let it do this. It's going to capture water. It's going to be, irrigation. It's going to have this function for security for the temple. You have to know ahead of time that it's going to work. Can you imagine sacrificing the resources of your civilization for God knows how many years or months, or maybe even decades, and then it doesn't work, it fails? Yeah. You have to know they had foreknowledge that it was going to actually work. This is evidence of advanced engineering, advanced calculus, advanced understanding of irrigation and farming. It's just mind-blowing.
How many years ago are we talking?
They try to say that it's only about 900 years ago. In actuality, when you look at the foundation stones at Angkor Wat, which the ancients, the indigenous people say that the ancients came to build this place and they poured it into place in a day and a night. That's the indigenous people who live. They live around the complex. They said it was poured into place, and it looks like it's poured rock, like melted, molded rock. The foundation stones are megalithic and massive, and then the smaller stones are built on top. You always look at the base of these ancient temples and these sites, and those base stones give you a clue as to how old the place might be. I'm estimating at least 5,000 to 6,000 years, at least.
Okay. So for these civilizations, where are they getting the knowledge from? Is this something which they've figured out for themselves, or is somebody from another planet passing on this?
They always say, and it doesn't mean that these are aliens, but they always say that they got this knowledge from the gods, or the gods built these structures. Who are the gods? I think they're gods with a lowercase g. Now, the gods could be...
What do you mean lowercase g? What does that mean?
In other words, they're not the god of the universe that created, created everything that exists. These are people.
Okay.
And we know they're people because they've got descriptions of them. They've got statues of them. They write about them. They have sex. They have babies. They get in fights and, some get wounded. So we know they're not the creator of the universe, even though they call them and revered them as gods, just because they had advanced technology. They had advanced knowledge and advanced technology. So these people were, and I do mean people, that put their pants on one leg at a time like us. They had this knowledge and they shared it with these people. Now, it doesn't mean that they could have been aliens, although they could have been aliens. Some of the texts talk about these people coming from heaven to earth and turning mud into a kingdom, like the ancient Egyptian texts in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They call them the Netters. And in other texts, they're known as the Anuna. In other texts, the Anunnaki. In other texts, you're known as, the Greek gods, the Pantheon. All these different names they have, but they're talking about the same people every single time. And they always seem to have this higher plane of existence that they come down from to engage mankind. So it's possible that it could be spiritual, they could be physical, corporeal aliens, or they could be beings that were on Earth that somehow advanced to a high level in one part of the world and had spread out around the entire planet to help civilization. Mm-hmm. There's no exact specific answer, but it really is intriguing that wherever you go on this planet, they all call these people gods.
Yeah. Are you swayed towards one view?
I sway towards the alien hypothesis, the ancient astronaut theory. That's my personal opinion. I found a lot of texts that I uncovered, and I filmed a series called Anunnaki Ancient Secrets Revealed. Mm-hmm. It's a docu-series on my TV network, Forbidden Knowledge TV. And in this series, we go through the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, the Indian Vedas, the Rig Veda, which is the Battle of the 10 Kings, which took place in space. We go through all these accounts of these space wars and wars in the heavens, and we discover that a lot of these wars seem to have originated from the Pleiadian star system, right? The Seven Sisters, they call them in ancient texts. It's talked about in Sumeria, it's talked about in Egypt, it's talked about in Australia, all around the world. And most of the artifacts that actually exist that have depictions of the sky on them, they always show the Pleiadian star system there. It's written about in the biblical text. It's written about in the Quran. You can't get away from the Pleiades. It's everywhere. And this war in the heavens seemed to have took place there. And my hypothesis, this is a hypothesis now, that this war was so bad that people fled from that region of the sky and created breakaway civilizations on other planets. And Earth just happens to be one of many breakaway civilizations that exist. They became space refugees.
Mm-hmm. So this wasn't a war that was happening like in the middle of space. Well, I mean, it was happening in the middle of space, not on a planet.
No, in space. But the problem is they had this weapon, like there was one weapon in the Indian Vedas called the Brahmastra. And the Brahmastra was a weapon that when it was released, it could destroy any man on 3 worlds.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about planetary destroyer, weapons that can destroy planets and moons. Imagine if somebody came and had a battle with Mars, people on Mars, people were on there, right? And then they said, we'll unleash this weapon on Mars and it blows up. Well, the debris then would travel and it would destroy Earth. It would destroy Saturn. It would destroy Mercury and Venus. So this weapon that can be unleashed can destroy any man on 3 worlds. We're talking about planets breaking apart and crashing into other planets and moons, killing life. And so when that started happening, again, my hypothesis, these beings, whoever had the capability, they fled.
Yeah.
They took off and we got to get out of here. We're going to die. And took off whoever had the capability and created these breakaway civilizations.
Well, it kind of makes sense at the rate we're going and the weapons that we're developing. Like if we continue at this rate, the weapons are going to get more and more powerful.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's pretty scary.
This is why Elon Musk is trying to take 1 million people to Mars, because he says that Earth is in danger, and he wants to create a breakaway civilization on Mars by 2030.
You think it could be done?
I think it could be done, but probably more likely by 2035.
Yeah.
Being realistic.
But why go move on to a planet instead of maybe just creating some massive space station and then trying to live up there?
I think the space is very dangerous.
Okay.
And resources in space are extremely limited. So it can be done, right? It can be done because I believe when we become a type 1 civilization, we'd easily be able to do that. But right now we're a type 0 civilization. So we haven't even reached type 1 yet. We can't harness the resources, the energy of our sun or anything yet, not in an efficient way. Solar panels capture about 15% of the sun's energy. I mean, we're like wasting energy left and right. But I think that if you can get on a planet like Mars, which has a lot of natural resources, it has gold, it has minerals in the soil, it has water, it has billions of tons of liquid water on Mars. This is well documented now. It's not a hypothesis anymore. It's peer-reviewed science.
Well, is this liquid water under frozen water? Or
they have liquid water under frozen water, and they also have liquid water that melts and comes out during the day, and they also now have documented on a press release about maybe 1.5 years ago an actual lake. They have lakes all over Mars.
Okay.
And these lakes have a lot of these green dots all around them. And they keep wondering where all the methane is coming from in the atmosphere. Well, the methane is coming from gas coming from this life, this algae or whatever it is, or bacteria. So they're hiding life on Mars right now at this moment, but they will announce life on Mars soon. And they're going to say that, we discovered aliens, it's bacteria on Mars. There's a lot more there, in my opinion, on Mars, because I've been looking at Mars anomalies for a very long time. And I believe that there's a lot of evidence of an ancient civilization that was destroyed on Mars. And it matches with the Sumerian tablets where they talk about the fact that the Igigi beings, which were the working class Anunnaki, were living on Earth and Mars and running a concurrent civilization. In other words, civilizations running here and there at the same time. And the beings on Mars got fed up with the working conditions and the workload and left Mars, came to Earth, to a place in South Africa called Adam's Calendar, to go to war against the gods of Earth, Enki and Enlil. And then an agreement was made not to go to war because they would get the humans to do the work for them, to bear the load of the gods, is what they say in the text, the Epic of Atrahasis. And so we became the slaves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that why sometimes humans have slave-like traits?
Yes. It's in the DNA.
To follow and...
To follow, to
obey.
be sheep, to obey. They inserted something called a worship gene into our genome. I'm not saying that that's peer-reviewed science, but I'm saying that scientists researched and found the worship gene. And when you deactivate it, a person doesn't want to worship on the outside anymore. They only want to go inside. When they activate it, a person's thinking to the outside again. They also put a magnetic field over this woman's head and several other laboratory people that were willing to take the experiment. And when they amplified the magnetic field to certain frequencies, all of a sudden, that person had a godlike experience. And then when they turned it off, it went away. So it shows that the human being is kind of hardwired for that need or that want to worship something. And so we became a giant cargo cult, in my personal opinion. If you look at the atolls down in South Pacific, these atoll islands, America decided, you know what, we're going to go down here and blow up some nukes and test them out down here. The villagers, we'll just move them over a few islands and, we'll tell them, we'll give them some trinkets, which is what we did. Unfortunately, they showed up with trinkets. They showed up with cargo. They showed up with cans of Spam. And these islanders had never seen outsiders, and they began to revere Americans, the USA, as gods. They tattooed USA on their chest with plant colors. They reproduced guns with trees and reeds. They even made an airplane out of trees and reeds that looked just like the airplanes that the Americans came in with the pontoons to come on the water. They made a runway, and they would line the runway every day looking up at the sky with the elders, waiting and praying for the sky gods to return with more cans of Spam. Okay? So when I look at that, I realize what happened to everyone else. Advanced beings either were here or came from somewhere, engaged mankind in a lower state of understanding technologically and spiritually, was revered as gods, and then became worshipped. Mm-hmm. And we do the work for them in honor of them. So we're slaves, but not knowing that we're being enslaved.
Yeah.
The best kind of slave to have.
I would imagine quite a lot of very religious people would not be happy about.
They don't like that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can edit it out, but that's my personal opinion. And the thing is like, we have to understand, let me make this statement first of all, because I've said this many, many, many times. I believe that God exists.
Yeah.
And the reason why that I believe there's a God is because of the science. The mathematics and the quantum physics are proving to us every single day that we're living in a creation. I wrote a book about it. And in the book I wrote, which became a bestseller in quantum theory and fractal mathematics, it became #1 on Amazon. It talks about the fact that God does exist, and here's the reason why. In this book, it's called Fractal Holographic Universe, The Matrix Code Revealed. And in this book, I go into the depth of the understanding of the fractal mathematics, the Mandelbrot set mathematical equation that's being used now by Pixar Studios and many other incredible producers to create scenes on the fly utilizing nature's code, mm-hmm. proving that we're living in a matrix, a holographic matrix. It's not that we're not real, and it's not that this is like, the movie The Matrix in terms of like the numbers and the letters, but what it proves is that the creation, the method of creation for this realm is a fractal holographic light matrix, and that's now been proven through the work of Professor James Gates Jr., his mathematical crew that came together and really researched the ether of space itself and realized it was running on something called Adinkra codes. Mm-hmm. Now, the Dogon have the Adinkra symbols. These ancient symbols, when you turn them into three-dimensional objects, there's mathematical codes embedded in them. Those codes are called error-correcting codes. They're the same exact codes that run search engines and web browsers. That's what's running this. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're living in a matrix. And so if that's the case, that means that somebody had to create this program, this supernatural program that we're living in that's imbued with this divine energy. So it doesn't take away anything from God. It doesn't take anything away from spirituality. What it says is the method used for creation of this realm is a code, and we're living within that mathematical code. And that's why no matter where you are in the universe, no matter what race you are of alien, we can communicate as long as we go to math. If we go to math, we can talk. It doesn't matter what language you speak, if you can speak at all, but if you can understand math, we can have a conversation.
How's your math?
Yeah.
Is your math good?
Math, it's decent. It's decent math. It's not the greatest, but hey, I mean, the book reached #1 in fractal mathematics.
Yeah.
It's a science book. It's pretty good.
So you mentioned earlier about some of the things which are happening on Mars and information which is being withheld. Mm-hmm. Who is aware of this information and why are they withholding it?
Well, that would be NASA. Now, NASA is just a front for a secret space agency. NASA is the public space agency. And they began to do a lot of things in the late 70s, early 80s that were making a lot of headway with people like myself and many other researchers that say, hey, man, there's something going on up there, not only on Mars, but just in space above our planet, because they were doing live feeds. And those live feeds would show UFOs all the time. Those live feeds would capture anomalies in space. The footage that they were sending back was like mind blowing.
Is this just what, like a satellite or telescope just pointing into space?
Yeah, satellites in space already.
Okay.
Pointing out to space, and also cameras on the ISS, the International Space Station.
This was available to the public to watch?
Available to the public. Tax dollars paid for it. And so eventually they had to go off the live feed because there were too many anomalies, especially the tether incident. If you can kind of overlay that on this clip, the tether incident happened where they were releasing a space tether to test out some new technology. The tether snapped and went out into space about 3 miles. It was a long tether from the craft. And I think it was electromagnetic, but it attracted these objects in space. that were on the multi-spectrum. So the multi-spectrum camera can see them, but they were broadcasting live. And because it was a tether that was going out for so long in terms of like the size, we knew we can measure the size of the objects passing over and under it. Some of these things were 100 yards wide.
Mm-hmm.
They were massive. And they looked like discs that were glowing and shimmering. And they had notches in them. And you can look this up. It's NASA raw feed data. Soon after that, they went from the live feed. They cut the live feeds off because that created so many questions and so much conspiracy. They stopped doing the live feeds. But so NASA, whoever is above them, they moved them into a position where we're going to start to break down this space shuttle program, the STS missions. We're going to move everything into private space because we were doing so many freedom of information requests with them to get all this data and all these images and video clips. And the powers that be, whoever that is above them, realized that we were getting access to all the information that proves that there are beings or something is up there that we're not privy to or we don't understand. And so they went to private space because in private space, like, SpaceX or, Northrop Grumman and all these other private aerospace companies, they don't have to, you can't give them a freedom of information request. You can't send a FOIA to them and say, we want to see all the records. We want to see all the data. We want to see all the videos and images because it's a private company. So they started basically contracting out to private corporations to hide everything from us. And that gives them the right to do that. So that's why the space shuttle program went down. It wasn't because of money. They still run shuttles into space through the secret space program. They will tell you the launch through the X-33B shuttle. You'll see it launch, but you don't know where it goes, and it leaves for a year at a time.
Okay.
Well, where's it going?
Yeah.
The X-33B. It launches, and they tell you it launched. They tell you when it lands. It's gone. One was gone for 745 days.
The hell? There's one thing I don't get about SpaceX and Elon, because whenever he gets questions about this, he's always like, oh, they sure do a good job of hiding themselves. Whenever he gets asked about it.
Well, he's got a gag order. In order for him to get that government money, because who pays for all of his missions? That's the U.S. government sending him that money. It's our tax dollars paying Elon. All that money he's getting for SpaceX is all money from the government. And other countries that he's flying stuff into space for. And then, of course, some of the private companies that use him to piggyback their satellites into space.
So they're saying to him, look, there's certain things if you get asked about this, just say this.
That's it. We're going to pay you all this money, these billions of dollars, and everything else, you just shut up. And we'll continue to pay you. If you don't shut up, then we stop paying you.
Yeah.
We'll give the money to Bigelow Aerospace or somebody else.
He's a smart guy, so I guess that kind of makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, if you know that information, it would be really hard to keep that to yourself. Especially for someone like him. I feel like he's the type of person who would want the world to know.
Well, recently he was just on Joe Rogan again.
Yeah.
And he talked about the amount of theft and crime that he found within and laundering within the government.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't expose all of it because they'll kill me.
Yeah.
He said those exact words. I can't expose all of it, what he found, because they'll kill me. So just transfer that to the space agencies as well. You'll disappear.
Have you ever felt like in a similar situation to him sometimes with the information which you're spreading?
Sometimes I feel like, man, maybe they're watching me,
Yeah.
But I came to realize more recently, like at this point, maybe my reach isn't big enough yet, but I feel like the biggest threat is probably just the haters.
Yeah.
So I have armed guards. So, I got to walk with a gun everywhere I go. If I can't take a gun to a certain state or country, I have to hire armed guards from where they are, And they're sitting around. People don't even know they're there sometimes, but they're there just to protect myself. But it usually is just, fanatical people or zealots that I think I fear the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that there ever will be a point where the mainstream media is going to be completely transparent about this? Because I feel like every now and then they kind of they release some information, but they don't release everything, and then they almost want to promote misinformation to confuse people. Because I mean, now if you see these videos or UFO sightings, it's hard to know. Like, well, is this legit?
I know.
Is it AI? Is it like it's confusing sometimes?
Yeah, unfortunately these the mainstream media still is in a situation where they're getting paid. They're getting paid to put out dogma and propaganda. Not all of it's real and not all of it's fake. So it's a mix. You have to discern which is what. But if you look at a newscast on a hot topic and then go to every news channel, you'll find that the reporter is saying the same exact thing.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this is a script.
Yeah, they're going
right.
off a script. Yeah.
It's a script. And at some point in the future, though, that has to come to an end because everything happens in cycles. Right now, we're in a cycle of non-disclosure, a cycle of obscurity, a cycle of scripting, a cycle of paid, propaganda media. But at some point, that will shift and that cycle will break and it will go into a more open, transparent cycle. When that will happen, I can't tell you, but I believe it will happen at some point.
Well, I think thanks to podcasts and people like you, people are waking up. I feel like even for myself, I don't know when it came about, probably at some point in my later 20s, I just became more curious about the world, where we came from, and started to question where I was getting my information from.
Gotcha.
Because I was always either reading books or watching the news, and then I got to the point where I was like, hang on, this things just aren't adding up.
Yeah.
Like I need to dig deeper into this kind of thing.
Yeah, this you start to realize real quick that this is not. I mean, just bare bones basic logic will tell you that a lot of this stuff is missing information or misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have a space or a gap like that, and then you hear some of the excuses that they use to fill in that gap, and some of it's laughable.
Yeah.
Like when you hear for example, the pyramids, they come up with this hypothesis that you can go to a quarry and you can cut cookie cutter stone blocks. And then you see people actually building them, like these scientists. Oh, look, we built this pyramid in our backyard. And we use these techniques and this way to leverage it and everything else. And like, okay, that's nice, but you use cookie cutter stones. The Great Pyramid is over 2 million blocks of stone, and each individual stone is a different size. Nobody ever talks about that. It's a gigantic 2 million individually cut puzzle.
Yeah.
Every stone is an interlocking stone that fits specifically into the location, and then it locks using no mortar. And so that in itself tells you that each stone had to be made specifically for the exact location that it's sitting in. You can't do that in 20 years with mud ramps and elephants and all these other crazy hypotheses. So when you see the mud ramp theory, you need more mass in mud than the Great Pyramid itself to make the ramp.
Yeah.
So that would be a feat bigger than making the pyramid. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
The tree log theory and all it's laughable. Instead of them saying there's a missing gap here, we just haven't figured it out, but in some way they had a level of advanced technology far beyond us, and we need to look into it and research it seriously and not obscure anything. They always go to the other thing, and I think they go to that because it will disprove a lot of dogma.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of religious texts will fall apart. A lot of texts about slaves building pyramids will fall apart. I don't believe any slaves built any pyramids. I believe that working men built the pyramids. We found the records, which nobody talks about, in Egypt, of the men that worked on the pyramids, their broken bones, how they had to get them repaired, their salaries. Since when do slaves get paid salaries?
Yeah.
All this information has now been found, and it's in museums, but the mainstream still goes with this propaganda. And then, of course, the religious people go with the propaganda of, Jewish slaves built these things. Slaves, in my opinion, from what I've learned, are slaves of all races, because every race on this planet has been enslaved. There's not one race that has never been enslaved before. They always have one thing in common when I study them. They're illiterate.
Mm-hmm.
Slaves aren't grown or developed to be smart and intelligent, because if you're too smart and intelligent, then why would I need to be a slave anymore?
Yeah.
All right. So, and eventually they do get smarter, and then what happens? They rebel, and then there are no more slaves. So you realize that the hypothesis of slaves building a pyramid, having advanced calculus knowledge, advanced mathematical knowledge, advanced cutting techniques, advanced alignments with star systems that are, millions of light years away. All of a sudden you go, I just don't buy this slave. I just don't buy this slave story anymore.
But you know what baffles me is, if they were so advanced, how did they not foresee or were able to protect themselves from being wiped out? Mm-hmm. Assuming that they got wiped out. I mean, they could have maybe just for whatever reason left.
Mm-hmm.
That's one theory. But there's another theory that, there was some cataclysmic event which basically wiped out almost everything on planet Earth at a certain point in time.
The Younger Dryas.
Yeah. But how could they not protect themselves against something like that?
That's a great question. When you look into the ancient Sumerian tablets, they talk about an object, the Koful, I think it's called the Koful incident. And there's actually a Sumerian disc with writing on it and shows star systems, and it shows the path this object came through space to strike Earth. So they had foreknowledge that this thing existed. Now, the Kofel impact or something it was called, or the Kofel disc. I can't remember the exact name at this moment, but we can look it up. But regardless, they have this disc. It's in the British Museum. And but the problem is that they talk about in other texts that they knew this thing was coming, and Enlil wanted it to strike the Earth, even though they had the power or the ability to deflect it. And he wanted to wipe out humanity, and he wanted to wipe out all the Nephilim.
Who's this?
Enlil, one of the Sumerian gods.
Okay.
He ruled over Earth, even though Enki, Ea Enki, and Earth is named after Enki. That Enki means, Ea Enki means Earth in ancient Sumerian. But even though he had the name of Earth, his brother somehow superseded him and was able to rule over Earth. And Enlil was the evil one. He would kill people for no reason. The humans are making too much noise. Cull them. That means kill them. That's in the Epic of Gilgamesh in the British Museum. He would kill thousands of humans because they were too loud. They're clamoring over here. Kill them off. These ones over here are getting too rowdy. Dry out their fields and let them starve to death. So he saw us as just chattel, just animals.
Okay.
And the population had grown so large and unruly, he decided to let this thing strike, according to the Sumerian tablets, not me, and just destroy as much as possible and start fresh again. And it says that they forebode into their sky ships and watched from above as their creation was destroyed, and they cried and so forth and so on. But Enki went to his half-son, who we call Noah in the Bible. His name is Ziusudra, and gave him the instructions on how to build this ark. Now, it wasn't a gigantic boat. They found the ark tablet. It's in the British Museum. Or I think Irvin Finkel, who runs the British Museum, did a complete video on it and actually has it holding in his hand. It was a disc. It was a disc-shaped object, a massive disc-shaped object that was cut up like a pie on the inside. And he wasn't told to get 2 of every kind from the planet to put inside this boat. There weren't 2 cockroaches and 2 spiders and 2 mosquitoes. He was told to gather his local flora and fauna and his local livestock, put it on there with him, which is what he did. It wasn't sure why it was this disc shape, but that's what it was according to the tablet. That's what he built.
Okay, and then what? So the disc leaves Earth, or just
I don't know if it floated or why that shape. Maybe it was for strength. It's not quite sure. That's a gap. We don't understand, but it was a disc. It wasn't an actual boat like the biblical text lays out.
So the Earth gets struck. Then after that is an ice age. Yeah,
well, it strikes the Younger Dryas, which is an ice pack. That melts, and that brings the global flood.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple things. Well, the impact, of course, creates tsunamis and everything else, and also the ice, massive amount, billions of tons of ice melt in a rapid pace, and then that floods out the entire region. Yeah.
Is it, and what region is that? The whole of Africa?
Syria, and down into, Mesopotamia, Africa, all of that. Yeah.
Okay.
When we go into when we go inside the Sphinx enclosure, I take people there in the mornings on my private tours. I do tours to Egypt every year. I showed them the Sphinx enclosure, the walls, and I showed them the water erosion. I even showed them the flow where it came in from the west and flows to the east. And you can see, judging by the strata of the stone, how it's been eroded, you can basically calculate how many years it took and how much water was in there. The whole Sphinx was underwater. All that water came from the Younger Dryas.
Well, how can you tell the difference between a flooding erosion and rainfall erosion?
Well, good question. With the rainfall erosion, you can see that the water hasn't accumulated if it's moving out of the area rapidly. But with the flood erosion, you can actually see the water flow.
Okay.
So the way that the plateau is set up and the angle that it's in, you can almost calculate at the flow of the water where it came from. It goes all the way up into Syria and beyond. And you can see the flow go directly down, and you can see the strata flow right out to the east into where now people actually live. But at that time, I don't think that many people lived there. And you can actually see the years of erosion and how much water was there and how long it sat there for so much time. Dr. Robert Schoch, who's an amazing real archaeologist, a real scientist, PhD, he calculated at least 13,000 years, which takes us to the Ice Age. I don't go against him on that. He had an actual peer that used to work with him that unfortunately he passed away. But he talks about maybe it goes even further back than that. In other words, this Sphinx enclosure could have been built 2 processional periods ago, which would take it back to about 36,000 years. I kind of lean a little bit more towards that theory, but either theory doesn't matter. Robert Schoch's theory or my theory, I believe that both prove that the Sphinx is ancient
This was long before the pyramids were built.
Long before. Well, I think the pyramids were built around that same time as well.
Okay.
I think
they were able to they have the same level of water erosion on them anyway.
The Sphinx, the Great Pyramids have a lot of stones that were blasted off. If you look at the bent pyramid of Djoser, the Great Pyramid, the surrounding pyramids, you can see a lot of damage around the. Now, a lot of them have been refurbished over time, and even the ancient Egyptians were refurbished through the dynastic era. They would replace stones and so forth. But you look at some of this, the destruction, even especially at Djoser, you see charred stone that looks like it's been blown off the outside of the pyramid, and then you can see the charred remains laying out in the desert, in the Sahara, and then you can even look and see that they're laying amongst seashells.
Yeah.
So, and then I went out to the Valley of the Whales, this last trip I took, 5 hours into the desert to the Valley of the Whales, and I'm standing next to gigantic 40-foot Basilosaurus bones in the middle of the desert. And I'm walking literally on top of an ancient ocean bed with seashells and everything else, and ancient fossils. So that whole place had so much water, it couldn't have been rain.
Yeah.
It was definitely ice sheets melting in a massive amount, which turned that whole place into an ocean.
Are you of the belief that the Sphinx originally had the head of a lion?
No, I don't believe it. Yeah. I believe, So I believe that the original head of the Sphinx, in the Sumerian tablets, Ningazita, is Thoth the Atlantean, or Thoth, the ruler of ancient Kemet, which is now Egypt. He ruled over Egypt for 16,000 years, according to the ancient Egyptians. But his name in Sumerian was Ningazita, and his father, Enki, or in other texts it's known as Thothme, tells him to build the lion facing the constellation of Leo because you'll rule for that time, which is they ruled in processions of the equinox, and put your face on the lion. So I believe that the original face of the Sphinx was the face of Thoth, who ruled over the land of Egypt for a period of time. And now, why is the head not the right size?
Yes, not in proportion.
When Thoth's brother, Marduk, him and his brother got into these big battles. And Thoth left Egypt, left Africa, and went to Mesoamerica to build the Teotihuacan civilization. When he did that, his brother took over kingship, and he changed the face of the Sphinx to his son's face. So his nephew, Thoth's nephew's face, according to these tablets now, is the face that's on the Sphinx now.
Okay.
To add more credence to this, there are sphinxes that you can find throughout Egypt that have faces of men on them. They're not faces of animals. So, I believe that.
Have you been to Luxor?
Yeah, yes, exactly. Yes, been to Luxor. Yeah.
I went there last year. That was, in my opinion, I thought I was more impressive than the pyramids in many ways. Just going down and seeing the burial chambers of these leaders, like to see the artwork and the colors still on the wall and the ceilings, thousands of years old.
Mind blowing. The detail level.
Yeah.
I mean, that's in the Valley of the Kings.
Yeah.
And if you look, you realize that there's no soot over the paint. So if there's no soot, they didn't have torches. If they didn't have torches, how did they light it?
They use mirrors.
Yeah. You didn't use mirrors.
No.
Some of those angles, you can't really get the light to those locations sufficient enough to do the work the proper way. But if you go into the temple of Dendera, the temple of Hathor at Dendera, and go to the underground crypt, you get this answer to that question. They have light bulbs. They have something called a jed, which looks like a Tesla coil, and it has a cable coming out of it.
They think it's a religious symbol, but it's actually...
It lit. And they had electricity. We know they had electricity because they have thousands of pieces of electroplated gold trinkets in the museum that are thousands of years old. Somebody had electricity. So we know they had it. And then also there's another temple directly on the property of Dendera. They call the Isis Temple, which has been locked for, I think, at the time I went, it was almost 50 years. The groundskeeper gave me the key, and I unlocked it for the first time, and I opened it up, and I was able to take my people on a private visit in there. They said, you can't speak and you can't use cameras. The second you walk in, the first thing you see is light bulbs on the wall. And I was like, I thought they only existed underground. But that was the first time I had ever seen that same depiction of technology anywhere else with that exact technology in Egypt, except for in that other one that's right on the same grounds, but always locked. And so that was mind-blowing.
So that's not open to the public?
Not open to the public, no. When I go to Egypt, I take private tours. Like when I show up at a site, all the tourists have to leave. Yeah, like they get kicked out. Like the military clears them out.
Really?
Yeah.
How the hell did you get that kind of...
I got a lot of power there. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we call it, the Forbidden Tour of Egypt.
And you do that once a year?
Once a year. Every October we do that. In 2027, we'll do it in September because that's when you're going to have the full eclipse. But this year we'll go in October. 26 will go in October. 27 will go in, I think, July for the full eclipse at Luxor.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's going to be hot then, though.
Yeah, I know it'd be very hot. Yeah, I've done it, though.
Well, how long is that tour for?
It's about a 13-day tour.
Okay.
We do a lifetime worth of trips in that 2 weeks. I'm talking about we do everything, all the pyramids. We hike inside all the shafts. We do private business in the pyramids. We're in the pyramids for like 4 or 5 hours. Again, this is, if you're just going as a tourist, you get 15 minutes.
Yeah, but the thing is as well, like, your experience is heavily influenced by the tour guide that you get. So the tour guide is going to tell you his stories, his views, and they're often Egyptian. So they're proud to be Egyptian.
Yes.
So they're saying, like, oh yeah, the Egyptian people built these. And it's if you say anything different, they're like, no.
No, I know. You can't do that. We give you the forbidden tour. We give you the real knowledge. And our expeditions are more like educational tours. You have fun. You have a great time. We had a party inside a Karnak. Nobody's ever done that before. At night with stages and dancers and everything and food. And it was 10-star. Red carpet, the whole works. Everybody got dressed up nice. Private party. Nobody else allowed in.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but we do things where we take you to places and we show you the things, but we teach you the real knowledge, the real information. And we do have one homegrown archaeologist that's there with us who helps us and allows us to give the real knowledge. And when you get done with our tour, we give you a certificate of completion. Mm-hmm. You're there on a scholarship. You're there to learn.
We'll get back to the podcast in a second, but first of all, I want to say a massive shout out to Bionic. I have been using their supplements for the past 4 years. I never knew what supplements I needed to take. I'd always go into the pharmacy and buy a load of random bottles and end up popping pills all day, every day, not having a clue if I was consuming the vitamins which I should be consuming at all. But Bionic came to save the day. They are a tailor-made supplement company that will put together your own specific formula based on your activity, your gender. I have Bionic Pro, where I get the blood test done every 3 to 4 months, and based on that blood test, I get my own personalized formula. For those people who don't want to do a blood test or don't have access to that, then you can go with Bionic Go, where you just have to fill in a short questionnaire, and based on that questionnaire, you will get your tailored supplements with a surprisingly high degree of accuracy. So stop the guesswork, sign up to Bionic, and ensure that you remove those deficiencies and build up your immune system.
How does it work with the current archaeologists that are working on site now? Mm. Like, is there certain rules they have to obey by and certain areas they can't go to? Because even in the Valley of the Kings, they still believe there's some hidden tombs which haven't been found yet.
Yeah.
But you can't just rock up there and start digging.
No, you have to pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of the things we do and how we're able to do it, we get these approvals long in advance, sometimes a year in advance. Mm-hmm. And we pay a lot of money for this stuff. We pay a lot of money to, it really cuts into your profits like significantly, but it's worth it because you can give people an experience that they just can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to consider that because of all the trips I've taken, I've had some good trips. Mm-hmm. The recent one where I went to Egypt, I mean, I'd been to the pyramids before. It was the second time. Still, I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to see the things which I wanted to see. Without like the proper permissions and passes. Yeah. And even, I think the problem with the pyramids is it's just a stressful experience because you're walking around and you're just getting hounded by all the locals trying to, get money off you. All I wanted to do was just walk around in peace.
Yeah, I know.
Be left alone, go to the places which I wanted to see, not be told, oh, you can't go there, or you have to go here, or you got to pay this and do that. It's just like by the end of it, I was drained.
Yeah, we don't allow that to happen. Yeah. We have a huge team with us. We keep all the beggars and the vendors away. And we set it up sometimes if somebody really does want something, when we get back on the bus, one of our team members will go down from the bus and will negotiate deals for people who want some of these trinkets and make sure that they're telling you the right numbers. There's the money, because people don't understand the exchange rates and things like that, so they get ripped off. And we also have armed guards we have 4 Mercedes-Benz tour buses, brand new, with bathrooms on board, air conditioned, padded seats, and we have armed guards on every bus. And then we go with military escorts or police escorts, depending on where we are, everywhere we go.
Yeah.
So we're moving like a president of the United States. We're not moving like peasants. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's another way to move. And we stay in the Four Seasons or the St. Regis.
Yeah.
And we only eat gourmet food. And on the Nile cruise, we sail the Nile for 7 days. And the reason why is because it's easier on the body than riding in buses for so many miles.
Yeah.
We go to the ports and then we get on the bus and ride 15, 20 minutes, sometimes an hour max to get to the locations. But on the cruise, I do lectures every day. I'm teaching. We have parties, the Forbidden Party, dance parties, and then also, you get to see the Nile in a whole different way. And it's only us on the boat.
I didn't get to make it to Aswan.
Oh,
where
wow.
they've got the Ramses II statue. There's still a lot I haven't seen and need to see again.
Oh man, there's so much there.
Is there any places that you've wanted to go to that you've not been able to get access to, or it's just been too hard to physically
in
get
Egypt?
To? Anywhere in the world.
Oh, anywhere in the world. Nan Madol.
Okay.
Nan Madol is Asian. It's a place in the middle of absolutely nowhere. It's super ancient. And it's these megalithic stones laid in certain ways that build this kind of a water fortress that's over the water, and it's very hard to get there. I was just talking to Eric von Daniken about maybe 2 months ago about his experience at Nan Madol. So that's one place I would love to get to, Nan Madol. I would also like to get to Antarctica.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Another very hard place to get to, but Brad Olson, one of our talent from our TV network, he actually filmed a TV show on our network called The Secrets of Antarctica. And he went to Antarctica. So we have raw footage. He got the approval to come ashore and everything. Very hard to get there, but he confirmed the research bases and everything are there and what's kind of his hypothesis on what's going on. But I would love to get to Antarctica as well.
What is going on at the moment there?
There's a 30-meter wide opening that all these research bases, different countries, they've signed a treaty. So it's a no-war zone, even though there is, military protection. And the only one that's there that's not a country is the Rockefeller Foundation. They have a base there. Of course. They have they own a lot of land there too. But which is bizarre.
How have they decided how can they just go there and be like, oh, this is our land now?
Money. It's all about money, And so now they're researching something in this hole. And they haven't made it public.
There's a hole, but it's not covered by ice.
Right, exactly. There's some kind of opening within the ice. And I don't know if they made it or if they found it. It's not quite clear. But they've been researching this for a long time. Now, a few decades ago, maybe a decade ago, a lot of the world leaders went down there, and even Buzz Aldrin was invited, former astronaut. He made a very cryptic tweet when he came out of there that went viral. He said something to the effect of, don't quote me exactly, but he said something to the effect of, we're facing the ultimate evil. These people are evil, or something like that. The tweet went viral. It got screen shared everywhere else, got shared. And then a few hours later or so, he deleted it. But of course, everyone had already captured it, so it was too late. Then they flew him out of there and said, oh, he's okay, but he was coming out with a virus or something. They tried to make him sound like he was crazy or sick. But he interacted with something there or saw something there that made him think it was evil. What it was, we still don't know till this day.
So not the researchers and the people there, but
whatever it's in that hole.
Is it evil?
In that opening. Yeah. That's what he said. Now, you remember, you go back to, Admiral Byrd and the stories of him sailing down with Navy vessels to Antarctica to find the Nazis.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't Hitler obsessed with it?
Yes, he was completely obsessed. He had created a place there called New Schwabenland in Antarctica. And according to Admiral Byrd, he had these flying craft, he said, can fly from pole to pole with incredible speed. And those things attacked some of the Navy vessels, our own American vessels, and destroyed some of them and sent Admiral Byrd back packing with his tail between his legs back to America. So they found something, or something exists down there. There's a lot more, a lot bigger stories about the opening and Admiral Byrd and finding this place down there where supposedly his plane his scout plane was taken over by some kind of force and landed, and it's bizarre. It's bizarre stuff. A lot of the stuff is in his diary, but it seems as if there's something known down there, well known by the military and governments of the world, and they don't want us to really fully know about it.
Interesting.
Yeah. I did have a conversation with Major Ed Dames. Major Ed Dames was one of the head leaders, teachers in Project Stargate. Project Stargate, if you look it up, was a remote viewing program headed by the CIA. And he was one of the teachers and instructors in Project Stargate, well documented. And I took I met him because I took 2 classes from him in Orlando, Florida, to learn remote viewing. Each class is about 14 hours. And during that, after one of the second class, he was talking to us about, we asked him a similar question you just asked, like, what's the most craziest thing you've ever heard or seen? And he said that there are people that live in Antarctica, but they're not human beings. And he said they have the ability to come and go as they please, and no government of the world can stop them. That was his exact quote. Exact.
Come and go as in, like, just disappear.
Goes, travel, I'm assuming travel. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was travel. But he said they can come and go as they please, and no government of the world can stop them. That's an exact quote. Major Ed Dames. They made a movie after him called The Goats That Stare at Something or something like that. There was a movie, a couple movies came out.
Who was it that you said said it was a great evil?
Buzz Aldrin. So
why would he think that they're evil?
Something that he heard or saw gave him the impression that something was not good. Low frequency, dark energy, maybe a statement he heard. It's not quite clear. Nobody really knows.
Do you think that's been around like forever, like a good and an evil? Like, what's your belief on?
It's yin and yang. It's an energy. And, good and bad are frequencies, right? Low frequency, high frequency, yin and yang, dark and light. It's all a frequency. Heaven and hell, state of mind, right? You can be in heaven and hell within your own body. And I believe that, this evil is the same force as the force of good. In other words, in Star Wars, there's a force.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jedi use it for good, but the Empire uses the same exact force for evil, right? You have Darth Vader, who can use the same force that a good Jedi can use, who's trying to help and save. The other one's using it for darkness to put the boot on the neck and obviously to enslave. So if you look at the universe and scientifically, there is this energetic grid, there's force that we're all a part of. We're all energetically connected. And when you understand how to access that energetic force, you realize that it can be used for good or evil. In other words, I can take a car and I can pick up a homeless person and drive them to a restaurant to get some food and feed them. I can also take that same car and I can use it to ram people on the sidewalk and kill 20 people.
Mm-hmm.
I use the same car for good or evil. You see, when I went to my gun class, I was doing tactical training for my concealed weapons license. And the instructor said, "What's the most dangerous weapon that exists?" And she said, "Oh, of course, a gun." And they were naming different types of guns. And she was like, "A gun isn't the most dangerous weapon. A car is. Everyone has a car. Hardly anyone has a gun."
Yeah.
You see, so that decision, that hermetic principle of cause and effect exists throughout the entire universe. And that means that every decision you make and you act on is going to create a consequence, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence. It's guaranteed you will get a consequence. And so once you understand it, you realize that there is this ability to wield things for darkness or for light, depending on your actions.
What's the benefit of people choosing the evil or the dark path?
Well, it's
it's
ego. So it builds their ego. It strokes their ego. A lot of people, not a lot, some people get deep into the ego and they let the ego rule them and run their lives. And once you let the ego rule you and run you, we're all guilty of the ego. I mean, every single one of us is guilty of the ego. But the people that seem to ascend beyond and become great human beings are the ones that go to battle with the dark side of the ego. You have to have some ego, but you have to understand it, and you have to understand the battle within the ego, and not to let it consume you, because it can consume you like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings, right? And you become completely obsessed with power and domination. The people that control and run the world, they don't need any money. The Rothschilds are worth over $700 trillion collectively as a family. They don't need any money. But why do they own like all the media companies, and and they push the dogma and everything else, and own along with the Rockefeller Foundation, own all the central banks and everything, and have their boot in the world's neck? It's control, power, and domination. One of them was quoted as saying, "We have the right to rule over people like this." And they truly wholeheartedly believe that, but the ego has consumed them. And so being dark and being evil is a way of stroking the ego and fulfilling that need or that quest for power. Being a good, wholesome person, a loving person, a happy person, an uplifting person, a person that does service for others, that takes work.
Yeah.
That takes work. And a lot of people don't see the value in that. And they see that the other way makes money like this. The other way gets you power like this. But the good way, the light side, it takes work.
It's not a shortcut.
It's not a shortcut. You have to put real energy and conscious thought into that on a moment-by-moment basis. And that is hard to do.
What do you think happens to us when we die?
I believe that we transcend into another dimension and connect with our higher self. I think that this avatar body is connected by a spiritual cord to our higher self. And I believe that the voice that you hear in your head is really you talking to yourself. I don't believe that because I believe that we're all God.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe that I'm talking to you right now, but I'm talking to myself. And when you talk to me, you're talking to yourself. There's only one that exists. We have the illusion of separation, the illusion of individuality, the illusion of your personality and my personality, although we are just frequencies that come from one source. So if you look at a radio station in a neighborhood, it will broadcast out 99.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, but it's coming from one radio frequency source. My body picks up 0.1, your body picks up 0.2 frequency, right? And so we have the illusion of this individuality, but in true reality, we're all coming from that one same source. It's just that I'm attuned to a slightly point number frequency than you, which gives me the illusion that I'm me, so that God can experience itself subjectively as Billy Carson. God can experience itself subjectively as Mike, right? And so forth and so on. So, because I believe that the purpose here for us in this realm is to collect information and collect data. If you look at the human brain, if you realize that this universe is a fractal and everything exists in fractals of one another.
What was a fractal?
A fractal is a self-similar pattern that repeats itself at smaller and smaller scales, if you look up the definition. And they found that this fractal patterning exists all throughout the known universe in everything, and that everything has the largest pattern in the smallest piece, like a hologram. That's why I wrote the book, Fractal Holographic Universe. And so if you look at the human brain, it's encased in darkness. It doesn't know what's going on out here. The brain has friends: sight, smell, hearing, touch, taste, right? All the senses. Those are the friends. It says to its friends, go out there and collect me some data. The friends go out, they touch, they smell, they taste, they see. The friends collect information, data. They can't decipher it themselves. They transfer it back to the brain. The brain sorts out the data and then projects a hologram as to what's going on out here. And we navigate through this hologram based on a holographic projection from collected information.
Mm-hmm.
That's on the micro scale. Now let's go expand to the macro scale. We're living inside of a conscious mind. The universe is a conscious mind. The universe itself is trying to experience every corner of itself, every dimension of itself, every nook and cranny of itself. Within the third dimension, it's experiencing itself through who? Through us and every other thing that's here. Even every individual atom is transmitting back to the source on a real-time basis. We're transmitting back an atom. All the atoms in this microphone are transmitting information back to source. What is it like to be a rock? What is it like to be a blade of grass? What is it like to be an atom in a stone? It's all about collecting information to experience this realm.
When you study about this kind of thing and you look deeper into it, where do you find the information?
It comes from several places. One is a lot of times I'll meditate and I'll get these epiphany moments where I feel like I'm maybe even quantum entangling with information within the universe. And then I'll look it up and then I'll research it. So I get the information sometimes and then go research it, right?
Okay.
And by doing that, I feel like I'm making myself an open vessel to all different types of alternative understandings that could possibly come my way and asking questions I probably never thought about. And then I go and I research those questions and that information to find out how it fits in or doesn't fit in. Some stuff you throw away, some stuff it fits, and it goes, wow, this connects the dots.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique way of researching. It's like having thought experiments. That's what I do. Right? Einstein did it. Tesla did thought experiments. And so I do those thought experiments. Another way is I also read a lot of books. I have over 1,500 books in my house. Everything from biology to chemistry to sciences to different astrophysics to metaphysics to spirituality to divinity to religious texts, ancient texts, tablets, scriptures, papyruses, cylinder scrolls, all of that. I collect artifacts. So I'm always inquisitive and digging and looking for more information. And I might read something from 20 years ago and then connect it to something I just discovered last week. And I can see the connections. I have the ability to see the possible connections and come up with a hypothesis. And so through all my years of doing this now, I've come up with the hypothesis and the understanding that we are living in a fractal holographic universe. This is a matrix. It's coded with divine programming code, that we are imbued within it. We are immersed in it. unable to detect even the higher dimensions from this position that we're in. But scientists have now proven that not only does the brain connect to 11 dimensions at the Brain Institute, but now theoretical physicists are saying that without the mathematical model showing 11 dimensions of the universe, it would collapse. So now we know the brain connects to 11 dimensions, peer-reviewed science, and there's 11 dimensions within the universe, theoretical science. So it's all matching up. So you're connecting all the dots, and it's like, wow, we are multidimensional beings.
But we're only experiencing 3-dimensional.
Yeah, we have the ability to experience higher dimensions through different states of consciousness.
Okay.
But in this realm at this particular moment, yes, we are experiencing this 3D. We're living it. We have this fake arrow of time that we've constructed so that we can navigate it, so that me and you can meet here at a specific moment in time. Our reality tunnels can actually intersect here at this moment. But, time doesn't exist. Clocks exist. At higher dimensions, the past, present, and future exist all at once. And we experience this realm, this quote-unquote physical realm, which is really all an illusion. Because atoms are 99.999% empty space. Mm-hmm. So what's really here? If I took all 8.3 billion people on Earth and took away the empty space in their atoms, I could fit everyone inside of one sugar cube.
Yeah.
We're not even here. It's an illusion. This table is not here. This computer is not here. These are just frequencies of light slowed down to a particular frequency that gives you the illusion that they're solid, but they're not even there. And you don't touch anything because you can't touch anything. The electrons orbiting the atoms in your fingers are repelling the electrons orbiting the atoms in this microphone, and you think you touched it. It's just repulsion going on. This whole place is an illusion. The Aboriginals call it sleepy time. The American indigenous culture, natives, they call it dream time. Mm-hmm. The ancients knew about this from a very, very long time ago, that this realm is a testing and a proving ground to collect information, to learn, and to transcend to higher dimensions.
Have you ever tried psychedelics?
Yes, I have, yeah.
What?
Recently, the first time in my life, I tried ketamine. I went to Dave Asprey's 40 Years of Zen.
He was on the podcast.
Yeah, he was. Oh, great guy. Yeah. Great human being. I was on his podcast, and then he came on our podcast. We did a podcast swap recently. Some of those clips went super viral, 1 million views. But I went to his 40 Years of Zen in Seattle. It was amazing. It was a week-long process of really working on yourself. I'm talking, shadow work, mental work, meditation for 4 hours a day. The second day was the ketamine day, the first part of the ketamine day, which is a technician, a real, physician comes in and
is this like dripped into you?
No, it's an muscle, right into the muscle in the shoulder.
I can't imagine you there sniffing it.
Oh, yeah, no, right. Yeah, no. Right into the shoulder, right? They measure your body weight, they take your vitals. It's really scientific. They have real doctors and everything. You're very safe. And then you have your own meditation pod. So you have this space-age pod you go and sit in a zero-gravity chair. They come in and they put these dark goggles on you for light deprivation. Even though it's already dark in there, and then they inject you, and then you go into this incredible space. I ended up seeing the fractals that I wrote about. I wrote that book over a year ago, and I wrote the matrix code in the back of the book, and I put an image of what it looked like, and I saw that in this experience with the ketamine. It was mind-blowing, and it took me into dimensions. I was going from dimension to dimension in rooms inside of dimensions. And then the next 2 days after that, you don't get injected. You take a small amount in the bottom of your lip, a small amount to keep you in the mindset of neuroplasticity and development and working yourself and all the different tools they were teaching us how to work with. We were connected by EEGs all day long to computers and watching our brain waves. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
It was really 40 years of Zen in 1 week. That's why they call it 40 years of Zen. It was mind-blowing. But that was my first experience.
Have you considered trying other stuff like ayahuasca and microdosing mushrooms, things like that?
I tried recently microdosing mushrooms because I heard it helps glaucoma, which I just developed a little bit of glaucoma in my right eye. And it's not bad yet, but it's there. So I've been testing that out with the eye, a little bit of microdosing psilocybin. And it does seem to help. It makes things a little bit more clear. And it seems like certain days are better than others. Like I could see perfectly straight on 20/20. It's only to the peripheral that disappears, it fades out. But on the days that I do the microdosing, the phasing out isn't as bad as it usually is. Like this peripheral is not as bad. So I tried that. I don't think I'll do the ayahuasca or boga and things like that. I just don't think I really need them. I think I got exactly what I wanted out of that one experience. I think sometimes people seek too many experiences, and they get caught up in chasing that experience versus integrating the reality of what they've learned and how it can help them into their life. So I want to spend more time integrating than chasing.
Yeah. Is there a particular area or subject which you just feel as though you wish you had more of the answers to?
Yeah, well, that would be, a lot of my hypothesis is that there's life on Titan, a moon that orbits Saturn, and I believe that there's life on Mars. That's my personal opinion based on my own research. I looked at a lot of the data from the Huygens probe, and I just believe that I see structures there. I believe that I see remnants of ancient structures on Mars, and on my opinion, in some of the images and the crew that I put together, the team I put together, the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, I feel like we've downloaded over 1 million images from Caltech, NASA, Washington.edu, and others. And I feel that in those 50 to 56,000 or so anomalies that we've documented, that some of them show proof of actual life. And I just wish I could just validate it. I wish I could just say, yes, without any question in my mind, that they put out the data that shows, yes, there is life there, and there was life on Titan, or maybe even is life on Titan, but I just can't get it at this moment in time. I hope I can live long enough to get those answers.
Is there? I mean, if there was an opportunity for you to go to Mars, would you say yes?
I take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, even if it meant there was no return.
Well, I would think about it a little bit. Now, there's 2 ships. Now, Elon has his one-way mission, but Virgin Galactic is on the verge of building something that can go 2-way. And so hopefully by then something like that would be more feasible. I'd like to have a 2-way, but it's an explorer's dream. I would love to go to Mars. I'd love to be there. I've got almost all the landscapes memorized because I've been surfing it so much through worldwidetelescope.org. You get into the rover's mast cams from there. It's all saved log data, but it gives you the ability to pan left and right, zoom in and out. So you can really focus on what you want to see there. And I've got all those layouts and all those valleys and craters and mountains all laid out in my mind. I'd love to go there and explore in person. I'd love it.
Yeah. It's wild. Sometimes before I go to bed, I just watch these documentaries about the universe and even like what's in our Milky Way, what's beyond that. And it's just so frustrating that so much of that is, at least currently, just so out of reach.
Yeah, it's out of reach,
Do you feel as though these beings, aliens, are able to transport from one place to the next through the use of wormholes?
That's a great question about the aliens traveling and what method they would use. I believe there's several methods that could be used. One way would be a warp drive. Now, a warp drive would be just like what you see on Star Trek. They create a warp bubble around the ship. Now, how that works is, and what makes it incredible, is it allows you to bypass the speed of light without breaking the theory of relativity. Because if you break the theory of relativity, that breaks down science and it just doesn't work. But you can break the law if you cheat. And what that means is in a conventional spaceship that's going to obtain a percentage of the speed of light, time slows down for you as you travel away from Earth. If you can go the speed of light away from Earth and then come back the speed of light to Earth, that's one light year out, 1 light year back. The people on Earth, a lot of them will be dead already because time is going to be going at a rapid rate while your time is slowing down. Makes space travel, that method of speed of light travel, unfeasible because when you get back, your planet might not be, nobody might be there. But if you can make a warp bubble, what happens if you can imagine a table with a tablecloth on it, all right? And you put your ship in the middle of that tablecloth and you grab the edge of the tablecloth and you pull the tablecloth, the ship comes to you. So that's the concept of a warp drive. It actually moves space, not the ship.
Okay.
So it shrinks space in front of the ship and expands it from the back. And so you move space. So the ship never left. When it's up there above Earth, getting ready to go on warp 5, it never went anywhere. Space moved. So when you move space, you can now cheat the system and move multiples of the speed of light because space is moving, not the ship. And by that method, you can now make realistic moves in space to go 10 light years away and come back, and people will still relatively be the same age. So you don't mess the system up where it doesn't make it feasible. That's one way of traveling. Now, they came up with something called the Albuquerque drive. I think it was a Mexican scientist created this thing, and they've been testing it in a laboratory. They made a stable warp bubble for a certain amount of time in a laboratory setting here on Earth. So we're heading into that era of warp drives soon. Another way would be something that will give you the ability to access hyperspace. So we have normal space and then we have subspace. If we can get into that hyperspace mode, access, like break through the realm or the beyond the sheet that's, draped over reality and get into hyperspace and navigate that, well, then you can go from point A to point B in a very rapid period of time. So they've been experiencing or experimenting with subspace communication to try to get deep space communications at a higher rate of speed versus by the light of speed, because the speed of light communication takes a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
If the sun disappeared right now, the sun's emitting light, we'd have 8 minutes of light left on Earth. The speed of light is very slow.
Yeah.
The speed of light is not that
especially
fast.
in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that fast. So you have to bypass that. So they've been experimenting with subspace and quantum entangled communications rays. And then the third way would be, of course, wormholes. Now, NASA knows that wormholes are real because they actually discovered something around Earth called X points. So these diffusion fields that are around Earth right now on a daily basis actually have these magnetic fields where they connect and cross, create portals around Earth every day. Some lead to the sun, the moon, some even lead to other planets. So
how do they know that?
They've been testing with the Themis satellite system. So if they can find a way to control that and make them stable and control the destination of these wormholes, we might be able to see wormhole travel in the future. Now, a more advanced alien race that's 1 million years ahead of us, they may have already mastered the capability of making stable wormholes. At CERN, at the Large Hadron Collider, the LHC in Switzerland, they were smashing particles together. They were able to create microscopic black holes. So we know we can create the black holes now. Now it becomes a question, can we make one that's stable and open, and can we control the destination of the black hole as well? So we have a long way to go.
Do you have a feeling that could go terribly wrong?
That can be wrong. The Earth can get sucked into one.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there was a lot of fear that if they create these black holes on Earth in a laboratory, will the Earth get sucked in? It became a real fear.
Yeah.
But they did it anyway. They don't give, these scientists, sometimes they're like mad scientists. They don't give a damn. But hypothetically, it could have happened. But wormhole experimentation needs to happen somewhere away from Earth. It needs to happen in space.
And you've got to be able to send something through it that can report back.
Yeah.
You couldn't just send it through and then it go back from where it came, because would that place disappear? You've got to find another place to come back.
Exactly. You have to be able to control the 2 points for a period of time. And without that, it could be an unstable wormhole could put you anywhere in the galaxy or anywhere in the universe. And that would be bad.
That would be absolutely terrifying.
That would be horrible, man. Yeah.
Is there anyone in particular who you really admire with the work that they're doing and what they're putting out there?
Oh, man, there's so many great researchers out there right now. Of course, Matthew LaCroix.
Yeah.
Great human being, great person, great co-author of the book that we wrote together, Epic of Humanity.
He does his expeditions as well.
Yeah, he does his expeditions. He's been researching Turkey heavily recently, heavily researching Turkey. I can't wait to see his work coming out of Turkey. The Ionis project that he's working on is going to be incredible. There's just so many great people out there in various different fields.
Like Brian Cox, he's someone who I'd love
Brian
to speak
Cox
to.
is amazing. Also, Robert Grant. You got, there's so many great. Muhammad Ibrahim, he's a homegrown
Graham
archaeologist. Graham Hancock is amazing. He's always out there pushing the edge. people attack him all the time. He fights back. I love Graham Hancock. Robert Schock. There's just so many, Hugh Newman, Maria Wheatley. So many.
Why do you think a lot of these people end up getting attacked?
Because
you yourself have probably experienced your fair share.
It tears down the dogma. It tears down the status quo, and the implications of what we are uncovering. It would destroy religion.
Yeah,
and religion is a multi-trillion-dollar control system. There was a group on Spaces, X has the Spaces platform, of over 1,000 pastors who were conspiring to try to figure out how to take me down. Over 1,000 pastors from all around the world were in one space on X, focused only on just me, little old tiny me. So that shows you the power of this knowledge. This knowledge is so powerful that it can tear down a multi-trillion-dollar control system. It can tear down government control over energy and resources, right? With 0 point energy and some of the other technologies that have been oppressed and suppressed from the mankind. So it's powerful information. And when people start gaining the knowledge and wanting to ask questions and pushing back, saying, hey, give us this. We want that. We want answers on this. They've got to come with answers, and they don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It can shut down entire industries, you know? Coal and gas need to be shut down. Everything should be running on hydrogen.
Yeah, I saw that documentary. It was the Lost Century.
Yeah.
That Dr. Greer did.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Lost Century. Absolutely. Great documentary. I mean,
You
what are we
agree
doing
with
here?
a lot of stuff he's
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been interviewing him for years. I did a series on Gaia with him where I interviewed him for 8 episodes and some other stuff that we did. I did a workshop with him, other things. He's amazing. We gave him an award last year. We gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award. We have an award show do every year. So it's like the Conscious Grammys. It's black tie, red carpet, the whole works. It's phenomenal. And we had him come out and we gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm curious to know about is what's your thoughts on the big push of electric cars? When there's 100 plus years ago, when Tesla, he's created or come to the idea that you can get free energy.
Yeah.
Why is there these weird shifts in, okay, so now we're going to stop fossil fuel as much. Now we're going to try and push electric vehicles.
Yeah.
What's your belief on that?
Well, they're coming to the point now where they're realizing that the fossil fuels, and that's a joke also, because there's no such thing as a fossil fuel. Fuel doesn't come from fossils. Okay. Oil is the ambiotic fluid of the earth. The earth is creating oil. It's not from fossils and dead plants. That's the whole thing, but that's another podcast. But that these fossil fuels are running out. And there's enough people fighting against oil and fossil fuels. So they say, you know what? Eventually, we got to phase this out. We got to monetize something else. Let's monetize electricity, because guess what? We're going to use gas to make the electricity. So they're using fuel. Most of the fuel is coming from gas. Most of the electricity is coming from gas. So when you plug your Tesla in at an electric outlet, it's coming from a station down the street that used gas to make the electricity, or coal. So you're not really minimizing the carbon footprint at all. But they found a way to utilize sensational marketing and word salad to make you feel like you're helping change the world with this electric car, and you're lowering emissions and carbon emissions and gases, when all you're doing is really the factories themselves. The carbon footprint is astronomical. It's crazy.
Yeah, and mining the batteries themselves.
And then the battery mining. You have children in forced child labor going in these tiny holes, mining the ground with their bare hands in illegal mines to create the ore, the lithium, to grab the lithium and the cobalt. And these mines collapse on these kids. The mines collapse on these kids and kill them from time to time. And it's brutal, back-breaking work. They have kids doing this, and it's well known and well documented, but nobody will stop it. So you're really supporting something that's really dark, in my opinion, very demonic, and it's really going in the wrong direction. These batteries that they have from these cars, they're more toxic for the earth than a conventional engine block. So you can't bury them in the earth. They leach into the water table, and they destroy our water. And when they get wet, they explode and catch on fire. So many people are losing their homes because they plug their cars in at home and their cars just catch on fire randomly.
Yeah.
And it's not being talked about how these things are really deadly and toxic. What they need to move into is hydrogen. Hydrogen cars, hydrogen fuel cells is the wave of the absolute future. Right now, we're here in Florida. This light, all these lights, all this electricity, guess what it's coming from? Hydrogen. FP&L, Florida Power and Light, runs on hydrogen.
Okay.
We're powering the whole state on that right now.
It's not dangerous.
No, it's not dangerous at all. And so hydrogen fuel cell technology has been around for a while, and there are cars like Toyota and a few other. Hyundai has one, and now Rolls-Royce just came out with the first hydrogen jet engine that runs efficiently, and they've been flying it around on test mode. And when they did, their stock went through the roof. I bought the stock at like $1.43. Now it's like at $8. So I was right on that one.
Yeah.
And now jetliners are going to fly on hydrogen jets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was going to say it's that'll be good for the environment.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on global warming and this agenda they're pushing?
Global warming to me is an absolute hoax.
Yeah.
And why do I say it's a hoax? Not because of conspiracy theories, because I looked at the ice core data. See, ice core data will take you back tens of thousands of years. And anyone can access the ice core data. Just Google ice core data online. And you can look up all the science and research on the ice cores. They go get the ice cores, right, from the North Pole, South Pole. It goes miles into the ground and comes up. They put them in actual ice core museums, so to speak, like storage areas. And in the ice core data, you can see the cooling and warming periods of Earth over thousands of years. And you begin to recognize a cycle that we live in cooling and warming cycles, and they're natural. And matter of fact, this warming cycle that they claim we're in isn't even the hottest of warming cycles that it has ever been. There's been deeper and more hot warming cycles in the past before we had all this technology. So it shows us that, are we having an effect on climate with carbon emissions? Yes, a small amount. Are cows farting in the field affecting global warming? I think that's bullcrap. I believe that the global warming is coming from a natural cycle through Earth cycle, sun cycles, gravitational field cycles that exist. The wobble of the Earth itself creates these cycles of cooling and warming, and we're just going through a cycle. I don't believe in this. I think they monetized global warming. They started giving out contracts for geoengineering, which is, that is chemtrails. And those geoengineering contracts allow people to go up there and spray particulates into the upper atmosphere, boron and sulfur and all these other particulates, to reflect light back into space.
Yeah.
To keep the Earth cool. That stuff is coming down on us and making us sick, giving us autoimmune responses, and also destroying crops. And now, thankfully, people are starting to figure this out. Governments are figuring this out and starting to ban it over their areas. Even some states are starting to ban it over their states. So eventually that will be completely banned, but they've been doing it for a very long time. Another way to make money, sucking tax dollars out of the people to fund, mad scientist projects.
Do you think the poles shift every couple? I don't know how often they say that happens.
There's a pole shift. There's two pole shifts. One is of the Earth's magnetic field. And so that happens every 27,000 years. And we know this because volcanic rock holds Earth's magnetic field in it. So if you go back and get some volcanic rock and you can date it, then you can find out, you can check the magnetic field and you'll know, oh, this rock was here at the time the magnetic field was flipped. That happens every so many, like I said, a couple, 10,000 or 20 to 26,000 years, somewhere in there. Now, the magnetic field has moved over Russia. It's not true north anymore. And it's moving very rapidly right now. So it's getting ready for a flip. All the airline runways at airports have changed the coordinates because they fly on the magnetic north. So they have to change the coordinates so the planes can know where to land. Okay. The runways haven't moved, but the magnetic field has. So that's more evidence that this is a big thing. Now, the other flip is going to be the other shift is going to be the Earth's crust shifting. Another pole shift that really can be catastrophic.
Yeah, that's the problematic one.
That's the bad one because the tectonic plates are gripped together and hanging on. But every so many thousands of years, they slip. And when you have a mass slippage, you get plates moving continents at a rapid pace, which creates global flooding. And it creates an enormous amount of destruction. The destruction is off the charts. We can't even fathom the destruction that will happen. We know that we can look at Antarctica and we see evidence of a massive pole shift. Antarctica was in a more sunny, more hospitable location and moved to the location it's in now at a very rapid pace. And how do we know this? Because as the ice now is thawing, we have been pulling out animals. And then when they cut the animals open and do an autopsy on them, they're finding undigested food in their stomachs. How can you have undigested food and be frozen? You were flash frozen. So they know that Antarctica, and also from the leftovers of what they see, it could have been trees and things. It moved to that location at a very rapid pace. Ocean water flooded over the land because it's going to create a displacement of massive amount of water. And because of the temperatures, it froze. So freezing within hours, creating this flash flood situation, which unfortunately killed a lot of animals, but is also hiding a lot of ancient secrets. That's why pyramids are out there. There's technology, I believe, under that ice. There's a lot of stuff under there that they're trying to get to.
So much cool stuff under the ice.
So much, untouched for eons. It's all there. Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things we could talk about.
I know, man.
That's what I like about all the stuff you're putting out there. It's just like, damn, how are you you've got into like everything. It's crazy. I mean, if there's one thing you would want to be known for, what would it be?
I would just like to be known for enlightening humanity.
Yeah.
because people say, why you focus on the past so much? And I'm like, the past is prologue. Yeah. If we don't understand the past, we're going to be doomed to repeat those mistakes in the future. If a child is in here right now and it runs and grabs one of these camera stands and pushes it, it's going to fall, maybe even fall on the child. The child's going to cry. The child now knows, oh, it's dangerous. I shouldn't grab this thing and move it because it might fall on me. I might get hurt. Or if I stick my hand in the electric outlet, I might get hurt. But what happens with that? That happened in the past. So the child now is building its understanding of danger on something that happened in the past so it can build itself a better future so that it won't injure or hurt itself anymore. It knows now if I grab this, it's going to fall on me. I'm going to be in pain. So next time I'm by it, I won't grab it and pull it down on myself. But you can't get the knowledge to make that decision unless you understand what happened in the past. The child understands. In the past, it's just happened to me. We're children. Humanity, we're children spiritually. We are just starting out. If you look at a clock, right, with a second hand and a minute hand ticking, we haven't even reached 1 minute on a geological time scale on the clock. Mm-hmm. That's how fresh and new we are. We're the new kids on the block, humanity is. And we have a lot to learn. And we really need to understand what happened in the ancient past and the distant past so we can figure out how not to repeat those same things in the future. And if we can do that, we can get back to a golden age. But not just get to a golden age, maybe this time we can sustain one. I haven't seen any text that says you can't sustain a golden age. It's impossible. Nowhere does it say that. It says there have been golden ages. We've seen them. We have evidence of those existing before on Earth. But there's nowhere that it says it can't be sustained. The ultimate golden mission could be, can we get to a golden age, and then can we actually sustain that golden age for a long period of time, not go back into the cycle of collapse again, the Yuga cycle that the Indians talk about.
Mm-hmm. God, my mind is literally blown. Where can people find out more about everything that you're speaking about?
I have about 4,000 shows on the Forbidden Knowledge TV app. So get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app with the number 4. Go to your app store, get the app on your app store, and get access to over 4,000 shows, many of which you will not find on YouTube. Documentaries, TV series, fictional shows, movies, everything's on there. A lot of content on there. And then, of course, forbiddenknowledge.com with the number 4, our e-commerce, our website, our podcasts, appearances, tours. It's all on forbiddenknowledge.com.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Everything you're doing, you're waking people up, and you're just helping humanity to learn more about themselves and question everything.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Cool.